So today, as promised, I went down to the GMC dealer and drove a 3-liter Duramax diesel, and I give you guys my opinion as a licensed diesel mechanic. What is going on today, guys? My name's Alex. Welcome back to the channel. Today, like I just mentioned, I went down to the GMC dealer and I drove the 3-liter Duramax. It was just an SLT truck, but it was pretty loaded. And at the end of the video, I'll actually tell you the price of the truck, but I'm sure you guys can guess in the comments what it was. Anyways, I wanted to give you guys my first impression of actually driving the 3-liter Duramax. Last week, I made a video that goes much more into detail on the mechanical side of this 3-liter Duramax. So if you guys are more interested in the actual mechanical side of things, go watch that video. I'll put it down in the description. But today, I'm focusing more on the actual drivability of the Duramax, how it feels on the road, and my opinion on whether or not I like the drivability of it. Now, before I take you guys down to the dealership with me, I just wanted to mention a couple things. A lot of guys were commenting how I was reviewing the old Duramax engine, and technically, yes, that is correct. There is a newer 3-liter Duramax coming out in 2023. I believe it is called the LZ0. Now, the reason why I'm reviewing the old one first is because this older 3-liter Duramax, which is only like 3 years old, has had some real world years put on it. And usually by now you can tell if there is any major flaws with it. So this is why I'm reviewing the older one first, and then don't worry guys, later on I will dig into the new one and I'll tell you what I think. So I'm just gonna let my thoughts just kind of roll right off the tongue here when I'm reviewing the Duramax, and then after that we'll come back here and I'll give you guys a more polished review after I've had some time to think about it, and we'll go from there. So right off the bat, guys, wow, this GM interior is actually really nice. I know the Ram is beautiful all on its own, but I think they've actually done a really good job here. This is really, really nice. I like it. I like it. Okay, wow. This thing's actually got some power behind it. I was not expecting that. You put your foot down here. Oh. Wow. You can really, I mean, I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it, but you can hear that turbo spool up, which is actually really, really nice. Just that diesel power right when you put your foot into it just kind of pops you a little bit. Something the gas engine, at least in my Rams, just doesn't really have. Oh yeah, it just pulls you right back. I mean, the top end power in here is really not that crazy in comparison to what a gas engine would be. I mean, the 5.7 Hemi, that thing had wild top end. You know, you get about 4,000, 5,000 RPM, and it really, really pulls you. But with the diesel, what you're looking for is that low RPM pull, and this thing has it. This thing, right when you put your foot down, just really gives you that pull, which I like. I like that a lot. Okay, so for the interior, I thought I would hate this, the digital gauges. I don't actually mind them, they're okay. I would still rather have normal analog gauges and maybe center digital like the Ram. I do like that more, but it's not bad. This is actually really nice. I don't mind the horizontal frame. I mean, obviously the Ram has a beautiful up and down one, which is awesome too, but this is actually really, really nice. Much better than what Chevy had. I hate this. This really sucks. I don't like it. I just wish they just would have had a normal thing, not like this little fancy, you know, BMW style mouse thing. But again, it works just fine. I just don't like it. Now let's get to the important part here. What's under the hood? Bam! Duramax diesel right there. And you guys can hear, hopefully, this thing clacking away. It's definitely a diesel. So, what do we got here? This is your turbo. Again, so this is an inline 6, which means the engine is very long, but it's also very narrow. So, it's perfect for a single turbo setup. Blows air, goes in your intercooler, and intakes on that side. It's a very standard diesel thing. Every single truck out here, guys, like I said in my last video, has this exact same setup. So I really like that about it. Actually, I'm wrong about that. So this is the back side of your turbo. Your exhaust comes forward. Your intake actually goes across the back of the engine, which is strange. I don't really know why they did that, but... So again, guys, right off the cuff, and I'm sorry, I forgot the turbo was water cooled, and that is the reason why the air intake goes around the back of the engine. Normally on a air-to-air turbo system or air-to-air intercooler, the hot compressed turbo air runs to the front, the intercooler's right in the front, and it gets that fresh air coming through it and it cools it. So that's normally how a turbocharger with an air-to-air intercooler is routed. But with this 3-liter Duramax, they went with a water-to-air cooler, basically meaning the coolant is actually what's going to cool the hot compressed turbo air. Now, I was talking to a GMC tech about why they did that, and he said because the actual length of the engine is so long and they barely were able to fit it into this 1500 platform that they didn't actually have space to put an air-to-air intercooler, and so they went with a water-to-air intercooler, which you can pretty much put anywhere you want because, well, you can just route coolant to it. And lastly, he said with the exhaust pointing out towards the front of the truck, it actually makes the engine a little bit quieter. So once again, I think GM was very conscious about making a very quiet diesel. So she definitely has a good whistle to her. I like that. What I don't like in terms of noise anyways, she's very quiet for a diesel. And I think a lot of people are gonna like that, but you guys want to hear my opinion. My opinion is I like to know I'm driving a diesel. I like that diesel clackiness. So I do wish it was maybe a little bit more louder in terms of that diesel noise, but hey, I think a lot of people are gonna like the quietness. Well, let's continue on the old test drive here. Let's see if we can get some of that diesel whistle off the wall here. So yeah, that whistle does sound good. As you guys probably heard, the wheels actually skipped there, and so there's plenty of torque, guys. This engine will burn the rubber right off the wheels. You know, I really was not even trying to do that. I was just trying to get the engine to spool up a little bit. But I mean, yeah, like I mentioned, the one thing I don't really like is the fact that it's just so quiet. Me as a mechanic, maybe a car junkie, truck junkie, I would like to know that there's a diesel in there and have some of that diesel clack. But you know, I think the majority of people, like I mentioned earlier, are gonna want it to be silent. So I can't fault GM for that. Another thing I'm noticing is with the 10-speed transmission, you know, it's tough to kind of really boost up that turbo because you roll into it, you put your foot down, and then it just shifts gears. And then you're into, you know, your high RPMs instead of really getting that low end grunt and that turbo spool to really, you know, kick in that power. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the 10-speed transmission is wonderful for fuel economy and probably towing, gives you better gear ratios, but you know, there's something about just, you know, laying your foot into that throttle nice and slowly and just feeling that turbo just spool you all right up and throw you back. Obviously this is not going to be the quickest truck, but you'd like to have maybe some, you know, ECM programming where it doesn't really shift gears and can really let that turbo just get into boost. 10-speed transmission overall, great shifting. You don't really notice it until you put your foot into it, like I said. But just driving, you know, stoplight to stoplight, it shifts really quick. It's not like you're, you know, really noticing all those shifts. This thing really does suck. So in order to like change gears, you have to push the button and push up, or back to drive, and then park, you just push that and you're in park. I don't like that at all. So there's my real-time, right off the cuff review of me driving this 3-liter Duramax for the first time. But now that we're back here, I want to talk about 2 things I really liked and 2 things that I really didn't like. And we'll start off with the good first. So first off, I really like the throttle response. Now, you would expect with a diesel, you just touch the pedal and it wants to pull you. But unfortunately, with the Ram 1500 Eco Diesel, that thing had a problem with like acceleration lag, and this truck does not. This truck is very throttle responsive, and when you put your foot down, the thing moves really good. There's lots of torque, lots of power with the engine. Number two, I really like the placement of the turbo. So I've talked a lot about the inline six benefits in my last video, and once again, this kind of goes back to the inline six configuration. So it's very long, but that means it's actually really narrow as well. So it gives you a lot of space on each side of the engine to put things like a turbo. And as you guys saw, the turbo is very accessible. It's right in front of your eyes. It also means that turbo piping is also very accessible. If you were to blow a hose, it's really easy to fix. Now, if you were to look at the bigger engine, the V8 Duramax, that's in a V configuration. The turbo is kind of in the center of it at the back, and it is just buried in the engine bay, and it's really hard to get to. Same thing with the Eco Diesel. The Eco Diesel was a V6, sort of same idea, and the turbo was, once again, just really hard to get to, and that just makes maintenance that much harder. So I really like the placement of the turbo. Now again, guys, if you're more interested in the actual mechanical benefits of this inline six 3-liter Duramax, I go over it in my last video, which I'll put down in the description, and I get much more into the actual mechanical details of things. So check it out if you're interested. Now, two things that I don't like. Number one is to do with the 10-speed transmission. So I didn't like when you would kind of roll the throttle in a higher gear and the transmission would just upshift. With a turbocharged diesel engine, what I like to see is when you put your foot into the throttle at higher gears and you just get that turbo to spool up and that boost to really kick up and really just pull you forward. With this engine, with the 10-speed transmissions, it seems like once you get your foot really into it at all, it just upshifts. And with the diesel, a lot of the torque comes from those lower RPMs, and that's the benefit of it, is you can get a lot of torque from those lower RPMs without having to downshift. And that turbo, that boost, is just gonna push you through those lower RPMs when there's a load behind it. Now, I don't know, maybe the truck will act differently if there is actually a load behind it, but I would have liked to seen that turbo really spool up and, you know, really feel the boost. So that's one thing I didn't like. The second thing I didn't like was the noise. Now, the GoPro, for whatever reason, really picked up the diesel clackiness really well. In person, it really wasn't that loud, and as you know, like I mentioned earlier in the video, as kind of like a truck enthusiast, let's say, I want to know that I'm driving a diesel. I just don't want it to sound like another truck just driving down the road being silent. So I would have liked if there was a little bit more diesel tone to it, but I feel like GM, and I honestly feel like a lot of people really like the fact that it's quiet, so I can't really hate on GM for that. That's more of a personal preference, I guess. Now, the bonus thing I didn't like, which has nothing to do with the engine, is the little stick shifter, gear shifter. That thing, I don't know, it just seemed really silly to me, and I literally couldn't get it into drive after the salesman gave me the truck. He had to come back out and tell me how to put it into drive, so I didn't like that either. So overall, guys, I did like the drivability of this 3-liter Duramax. There's plenty of power, and I think this thing will do pretty well on the road for you guys. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think, as always. And if you did like the video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And if you like cool stuff like this, don't forget to subscribe. We got lots of cool stuff planned. So enough of me. We'll see you in the next freaking video.